Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis, welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Thursday. We got there, y'all. I'm going to tell you all about what happened in that courtroom today, or in the overflow room, because we're not allowed in the courtroom till Monday. All right. Real quick shout out to Debbie, Lori, Heather, Amore, Pam, Paige, Ashley, somebody from my hometown of Greenville. Hey, what's up, neighbor? Thank you guys for your donations. I appreciate your support. Music fact of the day, Miss Taylor Swift. I was jamming to some Taylor Swift to and from the courthouse today. She's won 11 Grammys, and girlfriend has broke 58 Guinness Book of World Records. I love her music, y'all. I will rock out to it. Biggest news of the day to me is the ruling about Kay and Larry. We finally got that this morning. So what did Judge Boyce decide? Ultimately, Kay Summer, which is Lori's sister and Lori's oldest child and only surviving child, Colby Ryan, can attend the trial. It said in the ruling in Idaho, Kay Woodcock does not meet the legal definition of immediate family member of any of the victims, but Charles Vallow does. And Judge Boyce said the record reflects that Charles Vallow is deceased. Kay Woodcock is the biological sister to Charles Vallow. And it says, accordingly, the court has authority to designate a representative from the immediate family to exercise these rights on behalf of a deceased, incapacitated, or minor victim when a member of the immediate family is unable to fulfill that role. The court finds it wholly appropriate to designate Kay Woodcock as the representative for victim Joshua Jackson Vallow in Charles Vallow's place. What about Larry? Well, you know, this is one of those things where a piece of paper or some law doesn't define Larry's position in JJ's life when he was alive and even now that JJ's gone. Kay and Larry both are JJ's grandparents to everybody who knows them and everybody who doesn't. But Judge Boyce did say that Larry does not meet the legal definition of immediate family member in relation to any victims and cannot witness any witness testimony prior to him taking the stand. He may, however, observe all proceedings where testimony is not being offered, and upon the completion of his testimony, he would be permitted to observe the remainder of the trial. The state has the means to order its testifying witness however it sees fit. Should the state wish to call Larry Woodcock early in its case in chief, that is entirely the prerogative of the state. So what do I think? I think that Judge Boyce really found the way to allow both of them in. And I really felt like this came from Lori. Mr. Archibald has never spoken in that way, saying that she named herself grandma and that kind of thing. It just doesn't reflect who I've seen in that courtroom. So it's a Lori thing. But in the end, the judge did the right thing and found the appropriate law to allow Kay in as JJ's representative. And let's just hope that Rob Wood puts Larry up first on Monday and he can go take his seat right by his wife and they can hold hands and then begin the incredibly difficult weeks-long process of trying to digest exactly what happened to their grandson, JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, who they've grown to love the both of them even more. And Tammy, who they didn't know. Through this tragedy, there's a common thread there, and it's an unfortunate common thread. But I do think kudos to Judge Boyce, because I know that that was not a ruling he wanted to make the other way. And I think that he gave it a lot of thought, and here we are. So all is well on that end. And I think hopefully Kay and Larry are breathing a little bit easier tonight. Well, we got a late start because they had some housekeeping matters or administrative business to take care of. John Pryor, Chad Daybell's attorney, he came in, didn't stay very long at all, maybe 20 minutes. And left. But we started off with 39 today. If you remember yesterday, we ended needing 3. There were 3 left. They all 3 got booted. It really took the whole afternoon to get those 3. Then after that, they brought in 3 additional jurors at the very end after the 42 just to be safe. And I get that because like Judge Boyce says, what if somebody refuses to sign their affirmation? Well, what does that mean? They're just saying that since the last time they were in court, nothing's changed. They haven't been exposed to the case. Nobody's tried to talk to them. They haven't went out and tried to find anything to research this case. or we've had some no-shows that just didn't show up for the initial part of this. And I think that was the right move. This is with Murdaugh, if you remember, 6-week trial. It was supposed to be 3. It went 6. We had 12 jurors, 6 alternates. By the end, we were down to 1 alternate, and this case is expected to go a little longer. I'm not sure how many alternates they're allowed to have, but 6 makes me a little nervous just because I did Murdaugh. And you could tell the state was really wanting to get a few more people on here just in case for tomorrow. So hopefully things will go off. What did I notice about Lori today? Well, she looks at certain jurors more than others, and I really haven't found a common thread as to which ones. She does tend to look at women that maybe seem to be about her age or sound like they're about her age. It's totally speculation on my part. And then today that she really focused in on a very young potential juror who was 22, which if you think about it, had Tylee not been murdered, she would be sort of close to that age at this point, almost 4 years later. And you have to wonder when she sees a younger juror, or when she's sitting there and the jurors are facing her and looking at her and she's looking at them. And then you have the state and the defense saying, you're going to look at, yesterday, John Thomas said gruesome photos. Rob Wood calls them sensitive. But you have to wonder, what does she feel? Is this real to her now? I've talked about the change in her. I've talked about how she seems way more focused in this, really assisting her defense, which is what competency is about. It's a very low bar for competency, by the way. It's not like she has to know law. And we know we had that scare towards the end of the year where it was in question, and now she's back. And we're seeing this week kind of that light switch with her where she's not doing the giggly kind of the demeanor that she had before that really made everybody mad, thinking she wasn't appreciating the gravity of why she was there. But I do wonder, now that this trial is knocking on her door, does she think about her babies? Does she miss her babies? Does she regret anything? It's so hard to tell with her. I don't know. But the one thing too that makes me think maybe she has to, in the back of her mind, think about it is pretty much anytime a parent is asked, can you look at these photos? And they'll say, well, I'm a parent. It would be very difficult to look at photos of dead children. You have to wonder what's going on here, not out here, but deep in her head. I'd love to be I guess you could say a fly on the wall. But the other thing, I caught her peeking at Archibald's notes when they were at sidebar. She kind of did the whole looky over, and then at times when they went to a few sidebars today, we had maybe one yesterday, we had several today, she would look out the window, and you have to think it's a change of scenery for her. She is in a cell a lot of the time, I'm sure, and she gets to ride over. They have her in this huge bus, y'all. It's like a school bus, but without windows. The windows are way up top. And anyways, we see her coming in pretty much every day. All right, so let's get on to these potential jurors. All but maybe one or two knew something about the case, and that's just going to be the elephant in the room, no matter where you go in Idaho. But the people I've talked to in the general public, when they ask, clearly they hear my Southern accent. Well, you're not from here. No, I'm not. Why are you here? I'm covering the Lori Vallow trial. I've had a lot of people say, who's she? What'd she do? So that's been interesting. Not everybody is into true crime, and it's apparent. You see that here talking to locals, and then with some of the potential jurors, they just don't care about it and don't really go to any sites where it would auto-populate on their Facebook. You know how Facebook ads are. But one man lost his son a few years ago, and it wasn't specified how he lost his son. But he said it was tough to answer some of those questions on the questionnaire. He also raised his hand when he was asked, or when the group was asked, can you be fair and impartial considering she's accused of murder, which includes 2 minor children? And he raised his hand, and he just wasn't sure. So they excused him. There was a woman with a grandson. Her husband is the CFO of a company that is shutting down, and he works from home, but he's crazy busy. And she picks up her grandson, but he can't commit to doing it every day. The defense was okay to excuse, but the state really wants her on this case. It makes me think that her questionnaire was full of the answers that they wanted to see in a potential juror. And so they asked, can your husband help you out? And she said, it's not guaranteed he can help me out. They ask, well, if you're sick, who picks him up? And she says her husband. They ask, well, can he take a little break in the afternoons? And she's like, well, it's like 25 minutes each way. It's not a little break. They ask, is there anybody else that can help? And she said, maybe occasionally. And ultimately, she said they have a friend who has kids that go to the same school. So she could ask if maybe they could carpool. Then the state asked, are there other carpools? And the juror's like, no. Judge Boyce asked if it would become a distraction, worrying about her grandson not being picked up. And she said, if she knows it's covered, then no. And so she moved on. Another potential juror was actually an intern at the Ada County Coroner's Office over 10 years ago. So it's been a while. It was funny because Mr. Thomas said, what did you do when you were an intern? Did you hold things or take pictures? And she's like, I did autopsies. And he's like, you did autopsies. But she doesn't know anybody who works there now. Prosecutor Smith points out she's had a chance to see the cause and manner of deaths and asks, if the state cannot prove cause, but only the manner, would you be able to convict? And she said she could. This man here, respect for him for being really honest, but he said he would have a problem believing someone whose religious beliefs are fundamentally opposed to his own. And they said they would discuss that individually, but ultimately he was let go. And because this case revolves around a splinter religion that, is not going to make sense to a lot of people. There was a woman who is in service, and she was really stressed about maybe having to leave her job. And she gives her hours. It's like 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so Mr. Archibald was really trying to get her to answer questions that would assist him in saying, let's just have her excused. And finally, at one point, he says, I'm trying to get you out of jury duty. And so she's like, oh, okay. And he made a comment, would you be stressed if you're here? Would it maybe change your focus? And she said, yeah. So she was dismissed. There was another man that made a comment about wanting a higher burden of proof on the questionnaire. So the prosecutor asks if there's anything about the court instruction he doesn't understand. She also says, we will send instructions back with you. And can you leave your personal thoughts at the door about what a higher burden of proof is, essentially? And he said he could. She reminded him, you're going to get definitions of the crimes and everything else back in deliberation. And she said, is there anything about the case, if he's convinced of each part, that he would need more proof with all doubt removed, which that's, he says yes. So John Thomas asked the judge to read the definition of reasonable doubt, and the judge asked if he would have difficulty following that definition of reasonable doubt, and he says no. So the next juror came in. There was prior knowledge, and she said, to be honest, I don't know what the charge was. She knew they were searching for Lori. So the state comes up and asks where she heard they were looking for Lori, and she thought local news. She can't remember the year, so it was early on in this case. It popped up on the news, and she just never followed it up, never looked for any more information about this case. This juror is not on Facebook either. She does have Instagram for work and has Snapchat for nieces and nephews. She was one that really, I think, will end up and be on that jury, because there were just like two today who really had no clue past maybe knowing her name or that there was a search for the kids. You're going to have that here, though. As many people as I've heard say out in public, like, I don't know who she is, to a reasonable degree. That's why this was moved to Ada County. You would have never found anybody in Fremont or Madison that never heard of this case or didn't know maybe somebody affected by this case. Tammy and Chad have 5 kids. They have spouses. They have kids. So there's a much broader opportunity there for jury bias. And so I do think moving it here was the right call. It's very inconvenient, I know, for everybody who lives down that way that has to testify, or the judge. But hey, I've seen the benefit just sitting in there every day. So that same lady, Mr. Archibald asked, what did you know before the questionnaire? All she said, they're searching for Miss Vallow and found her in Hawaii. And that was all. She said it was concerning, but she didn't give it much thought after that. And another juror came in. He's asked if he uses Google. He says yes. He watches YouTube. The state asked, were there any videos that popped up in your recommendations about this case? And he said no. He says the local news, he may see a headline or something, but he doesn't click on them. He doesn't watch anything related to the case. He has Netflix, but didn't see the documentary. That's one thing they ask a lot of people. Have you seen Dateline 2020, Netflix, anything? There was that Lifetime movie, if you've forgotten about that too. This guy also said that people's personal beliefs about religion wouldn't affect his opinion of the evidence. He also has taken religious studies. He said if he heard someone talking about like interpretations of tablets or reading sacred passages, that would cause him to stop and think. So the state says in doing that, neither the prosecution nor the defense can get in your head to see what you're thinking. And so both sides ultimately agreed he's got to go, and he was excused. The next juror wasn't familiar with the charges before the questionnaire. She didn't want to sign the affirmation, though. She said she has a flight and she was seeing if she could get refunded, but she saw an article about the jury almost being picked. And man, she was actually really cute and funny. So you could tell that she really was just trying to, in a very minimal way, look and see. She saw a headline where it said the jury is almost picked. And she looked to see the numbers. And then there's a juror page that tells, I think, how many jurors have been selected. And then the number of jurors to be seen, which for her was like in the 200-300. So she was really excited she might get to take this trip. I think the trip was maybe tomorrow even. And so she said, has anybody talked to you about this case? And she said, well, no, nothing. But my husband said, I hope you don't get the case, but that's it. But ultimately, she was just doing the math on the numbers to see if they had the jury, and she was clear to travel. She thought she would still get to go, but then she got the email yesterday evening telling her to come in, and she scanned the article that she looked at and figures they only needed a couple of more, and she was like 300 away, and she thought surely they'll get it, but they didn't, and I believe she's coming back. So that was kind of it for today. I mean, that's it. It's over. We got the 3 extras. 9 a.m. tomorrow, 9 a.m., we start the strike process. Both sides have 12 strikes. After those 12 strikes, we have our jury. They don't get to fight the strikes. So if the state takes a witness or a juror off that the defense wanted, well, it's just kind of too bad. That's the name of the game. So I think that we're getting there, y'all, and openings are Monday. And it's really, I think, going to hit a lot of people on Monday when these openings start and we start to learn these facts that we don't know. We have a puzzle and you see a picture, but we don't have the whole picture by no means. And that's what we're going to get as clear of a picture here in the next 8 weeks as we can. And so it's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be enlightening. And just remember to keep everybody who's been personally affected by this case close in your thoughts and your heart, because this is going to be the toughest journey, aside from not knowing where the kids were and finding out they were dead, that these people are ever going to have in their life, is having to hear the details of how. And I don't know that we'll ever know why, but just the how is going to be devastating. And it's just going to bring up the loss and what was taken from so many people. So that's on my mind. I don't really care about Lori right now. I don't care. I always put in there what she's wearing or how she's acting, and it's curious to all of us. But for me, my thoughts and my heart is very heavy for what is about to start transpiring on Monday. So that's kind of where I'm at. I will update you guys tomorrow. These are a little bit shorter. I'm trying to sort of stretch them out a little bit, but there's just not a lot. We could sit here and I could go through all the jurors, and I have notes on all the jurors, but it's a little repetitive. Either people just, started out, I don't know much. And then, well, yeah, they were found in some Daybell's backyard. So it progresses. And then it's like, well, and then sometimes too, it's just re-jogging that memory. And that's one thing they bring up is, well, if you know this much and you know a name and a witness gets on the stand and that re-jogs your memory, it could cause bias. And at that point, there's nothing we can do about it. That's why they've been very selective about who says what and in what detail they go to. So the more they knew, obviously, they were excused. But I think that everybody's ready to go, and it's go time. And it's a long time coming, y'all. The long road to justice finally starts to wrap up, at least for Lori, starting on Monday. And then when this is over, she's still got charges in Arizona for Charles. And I hope that she sees her day in court there for being a part of his life being taken, and just look at how much everybody's lost. One last thing, a lot of people inboxed me about Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing. She's allowed to attend the trial. From what I understand, she's not on the witness list, so she can sit in through all of it. It was weird because they deemed Lori's sister Summer Tylee's representative as well as Colby. So I guess, maybe if Colby's not going to be there the whole trial and Summer's planning to, we don't know who's attending from either side of the family. I'm very curious. We've heard the Daybell kids do not plan to attend. But other than that, I'm curious to see, is Lori's mom and dad going to be here? Is her sister Summer going to be here? Is Colby going to be here the whole time? Anyway, so we're getting there, y'all. And I appreciate all your support. I'm live tweeting every day. Next week will be the same. I'll just be tweeting out minute by minute what is being testified to. If you don't have Twitter, you can go to the website, prettyliesandalibis.org, hit that Twitter feed link, and that will take you to the Twitter feed. You just scroll down with your mouse. And if you don't have Twitter or don't know how to use Twitter, the top tweet, when you first get there, that's my newest. When you scroll, those are getting older. So I wanted to make sure people who didn't have Twitter still could watch or read, because the audio situation, I think days 1 and 2 maybe have been released, but I don't know how quickly the audio updates are going to get out. But every night next week, we're going to be back into our hour-long episodes, breaking down every minute of testimony so you don't miss a thing. And I'm going to be your eyes and ears here in Boise. And I have to say, I've fallen in love with Boise. What a beautiful town. And the people here are just amazing. And man, they got some good food. They got some real good food, y'all. So I'm about to go eat. We will see you guys tomorrow. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.